4:42 a.m., July the 8th, 2020. This is Hannibal from the HannibalTV.com. Just came back from training at a gym in Quebec where I was the only one in the gym because I went in the middle of the night. But it's annoying that these COVID-19 restrictions have kept gyms closed here still in Ontario. Cancer doctors closed here in Ontario. Had to travel to Quebec to get my skin cancer removed. So much bullshit. Now they're making masks mandatory here. You can get fined hundreds up to, I guess, $1,000 if you don't wear a mask. There's only been 106,000 total cases in Canada. Very frustrating, but I'll get on with the news. I'll stop thinking about my freedom being fucking taken away, and I'll get on with the news. Tammy Sitch, aka WWE Hall of Famer Sunny, I guess, did some nude photos for her fan-only site that someone's leaked out, and if you search them up, you can find them for those that want to check them out. I've done a lot of reports on Sunny, and I am interviewing Raven next week, who supposedly at one point in time had relations with her, from what I've heard, the rumor anyways. So I'll get to the bottom of that. Thanks for all your feedback on Raven, by the way, in my YouTube stories. Tons of fan questions and comments on that. On Raw Monday night, there was no ring announcers in the ring. There's been an outbreak. Supposedly around 40 wrestlers have COVID-19. And as far as Fight Island, as I used a picture of it for the screenshot, it looks like in the end, it looks like it is going to be on the actual beach. There was some talk it might be moved inside. Maybe they have another cage inside in case it rains. I don't know. But the setup they have right now looks pretty cool. Dana White says the BMF title is not going to be on the line for the Masvidal versus Usman fight. I guess the BMF title is never going to be defended, according to White. He says that was a one-and-done thing. UFC fighter Paige Van Zant says that after her next fight, she's not going to fight anymore with the UFC when her contract's up, because she knows what her value is and she needs to be paid for it to be more worth it. She said basically she could work a normal job and make the same money that she's made as a UFC fighter if you add it all up. And ever since I've been following UFC, I have noticed, following the payoffs, some of the payoffs are like $11,000. Take into consideration you have to pay your trainer. You have to train for months to fight. The maximum you're fighting is like 3 times a year. Other than the big stars who still don't get paid what boxers make, like Conor McGregor actually had to go into boxing to get its biggest payday. The fighters don't get paid very much, considering it's like small gloves. I don't know. I think they're 3-ounce gloves. So you're getting brain damage for sure, taking those hits. So I'd like to see the fighters get paid more. George Masvidal's coach, Mike Brown, will not be in his corner, UFC 251, due to COVID. And yeah, I understand COVID is bad. A lot of people have it. But in Canada, for instance, 106,000 have had it. 70,000 have recovered. If you're seriously at risk, stay inside, isolate yourself, wear a mask. But this shit makes me want to leave this fucking province, the restrictions they're putting on us, and like closing cancer doctors down. It's a bunch of bullshit. I don't like it. The Mark Effect says, hello from England. Well, hello to you, fine sir. I might be coming back to England next year, depending on what the lockdown status is by then. I was supposed to be there this fall. I am named after Devonshire, England. My grandmother is from England. And I wrestled there in 2008 for Brian Dixon, one of the guys that has speaking out allegations against him now. I still haven't heard of any formal charges being pressed against anyone that's had these speaking out allegations. So it's all hearsay until charges are actually laid. Jody Smith says, do a live interview. That wouldn't be fair to the patreon.com/the Hannibal TV people that help fund my interviews. I really have to give them something for the $1.99 a month they pay me to actually help support this channel, so they get to watch the full interviews first, ad-free. I get some people here and there that complain about my clips. Nobody's forcing anyone to click on my clips. But other than in a few cases, overall, usually my clip hits get more hits than the full shoot interviews. So I will never stop putting out clips of interviews before I post them. Like I've put out tons of Tito Santana ones. They've averaged over 10,000 a clip. Some are over 20,000. Very good feedback to that. But if you don't want to watch the clips and you want to watch the full interviews first, go to patreon.com/the Hannibal TV. And maybe one day, if I'm sponsored and not funding this company out of my own pocket, which, by the way, my job is still closed down due to lockdown. So I'm actually funding it through YouTube revenue now, my savings and tips and Patreon funds. So I thank all the viewers for everything. The Mark Effect says the pubs are open there now, so he's happy. I was actually talking to a British producer last night on Facebook. We were having a chat, and he was mentioning the pubs are open, which is funny because the pubs are open here too. And if you eat at a restaurant in Ontario where I live, you don't have to wear the mask when you're eating or drinking, but they won't open the goddamn gyms. But so they basically put a priority on drinking. Eating, why not just have people do takeout? Anyway, it's ridiculous. I will not go out. I will do my shopping in Quebec. Luckily, I live half an hour from the border. I will cross the border and do my shopping where I don't have to wear a fucking mask. C4 Pieces, the last time you saw Sunny's nudes, she had a huge, oh God, I'm not even going to say it. I used to have a crush on Sunny around 1995, and I would like to keep that Sunny in my memory. I don't want to taint it. I did watch one of China's porns, the one where she was gangbanged, and it did not turn me on at all. I actually felt terrible for her, seeing these guys slap her in the face with their dicks and so forth. I could only watch a few minutes of it because I had it was just sad to see her fall and how she got screwed over and went down a downward spiral. Trying to think of a wrestler porn that I've actually liked, if I've seen one that I've actually liked, and none are coming to mind. It's funny, though, that Sunny, when Playboy was making her offers when she was so famous around the mid-90s, that Sunny was refusing to do Playboys, and now she has nudes everywhere as well. I don't want to watch her porn, as I said, for the same reasons stated. I'd rather remember the hot Sunny. Richard Min says, yeah, you're lucky if you get 4 fights a year in UFC. I don't know anyone that's had more than 3 fights. I don't know who would get 4 fights. It's probably rare to get 4 fights. But the big names don't fight that often, but they're the ones making more money. But you've seen the money disputes. I think they must have paid, we'll find out what they paid George Masvidal to take this last-minute fight. But I think because they were desperate to not lose the main event, they probably made him an offer. Basically, he couldn't refuse because he's having this fight with basically a week of training. And for Usman to take Masvidal, it'll be interesting to see if he was offered more money to take an opponent that he hadn't been training for. Because obviously, when you're training to fight someone, you're training tactics that will help you protect yourself against that person's skills. For instance, everyone knows I'm a wrestler, but I have been trying to work on my striking. But someone would probably want to work on their takedown defense if they're wrestling me. But I'm continuously working on my striking to become a better striker, as well as my blocking and avoiding strikes, because those have been my weak points. Richard Mins says Ontario sounds like a real letdown. I fucking hate it here. I fucking despise it here. Would I interview? Sorry, I scrolled down as I was reading that. Boo Lewis says I need to end each interview with wrestlers asking them if they have been probed by aliens. No. I take the UFO stuff seriously. I'm not going to get into a rant on UFO stuff, but people can say what they want. The government, the Pentagon, and the Department of Defense have admitted unidentified aerial phenomenon exist. They have military pilots seeing these things. They've been recorded by military radar. They've been studied. They know more than they're letting on, but they're letting us onto it for whatever reason. So yeah, whether it's aliens in them or whether it's Russian or Chinese or enemy aircraft in our airspace, they're going into our airspace. We don't know what they are. They're going underwater. We don't know what they are, other than they have greater capabilities than us. So I take it seriously. If you guys want to laugh and say, ha ha ha, little green men, ha ha ha, go ahead. But I take it seriously when the Pentagon tells us there's objects in our skies that we don't know what they are. We can't do anything to stop them. They have technological capabilities better than us. We don't know what their intentions are. They're basically in our backyard. We don't know if it's a neighbor coming to give us goodies or if it's an intruder coming to kill us. We don't know. We need more data. Have I ever thought about doing a shoot with Rick Martel or Manny Fernandez? Sean Scott says, Manny Fernandez is a known liar. And I have done one short interview with him on there where he insisted the Invader 3 angle he did in Puerto Rico was a shoot, as somehow that would get revenge for what Invader 1 did to Bruiser Brody, which makes absolutely no sense. And it was clearly an angle. So to interview people that I know are going to exaggerate under special circumstances, maybe, but he's not someone I really care to interview, no. Rick Martel, I've tried. He only lives 4 hours from me. He wants nothing to do with the wrestling business anymore. I've tried multiple times. He's soured on the wrestling business. I don't blame him. And supposedly, someone actually asked me the other day who, in my opinion, was more successful, Martel or Santana. Martel was AWA World Champion. He had the Strike Force run in WWE. Then he had a good run as the model. Great. My favorite match of him was and it was coincidentally my favorite match of SummerSlam 92 was Shawn Michaels against Rick Martel at Wembley Stadium. I also really liked his feud with Jake the Snake. But supposedly that contract he signed with WCW for the 3 years in the 90s was for huge money. That basically he's a smart guy, had good investments, but with the money he made in WCW, he never has to worry about money again. Now, I did meet Martel. I've told this story before. I promoted TNA's first ever Canadian tour, and they were frustrating as hell to deal with. Okay, and here is the perfect example. I will tell you guys this. This is the perfect example of how stupid the people, they're even dumber now that run Impact, but here's a fuck up they did back then. First of all, they didn't want PCO on any of the shows, even though it was a Quebec tour, 3 cities, and PCO is over. He would have added to the attendance, but Rick Martel said he was going to be at the Quebec City show. He wanted to do publicity. They didn't want him to do any publicity. They wouldn't even confirm if they'd use him for anything or not until actually the night of the show, where I think he interfered in a match and got the biggest pop of the night. But it's like, Rick Martel wanted some involvement on the show. It would have been great publicity, but you guys didn't want to promote anyone that was going to be on the show other than a TNA person. But Rick Martel is the most famous wrestler ever from Quebec City, and it was in the Colisée de Quebec that holds like 20,000 people. We had like 2,300 people or so in there, I think. Don't quote me on that, but it was nowhere near full. It was pathetically unfull. And it's like, to be able to promote that Rick Martel was going to be there would have significantly helped attendance. Someone says my Raven shoot is going to be gold. Harry Roberts says you can tax alcohol. That's why. Can I imagine those hot women back in the 90s in person, the wrestling women? I don't even know if I did have a bit of a crush on Sunny back then, but there wasn't that many really. Now there's more ladies in wrestling, but yeah, I don't know. There wasn't really that many wrestlers I had a crush on in the 90s, females. There wasn't really that many. I was more of a WCW fan. The only one they had was Medusa, who I've never found attractive for whatever reason, even before I found out she used to date Greg Valentine. And once I found out Greg Valentine's had her, that was a turn off. I don't think I would ever want. Anyway, she seems like a great person, so I won't go there. TJ Rush tipped me $5, says, am I doing the Warlord interview? Yes, his daughter and father have COVID. It was supposed to be last week. Actually, it was supposed to be 2 weeks ago. Then it was supposed to be last week. And now he's saying he's going to message me when things are calmed down, but he's not in the right frame of mind right now to do an interview. So I've got other ones on the go in the meantime. Brandon Bennett says he loved Rick Martel. Can't believe he hasn't been in the Hall of Fame. Bullshit. I agree. Same with the Rougeau brothers. Raymond Rougeau is still a French commentator. Jacques Rougeau is synonymous with WWE, and he sure as hell passes the Coco Beware bar. Jacques Rougeau holds pinfalls over Bret Hart and Hulk Hogan. And he's one of the legendary wrestlers of the WWE, but whatever reason, they don't put Jacques Rougeau in the Hall of Fame, and they wouldn't give his son, Cedric Rougeau, 6'7", 300 pounds a contract. He could do flips too. He was a heartthrob. When he had his tryout, he was like 24, 25, yet they'll hire people that don't have the Rougeau last name. It boggles my mind, some of their hiring practices. Jerry Flynn interview, Nacho Man 64. I would have to check if Jerry Flynn is alive, but that is a good question. I don't know if he's passed or not, but I will look that up. AJS, have I ever witnessed anything paranormal? I have witnessed a rocking chair rocking by itself. And when I turned on the light, the rocking chair stopped rocking. When I turned on the light, and when I turned it back off, it started rocking again. Then when then when I turned it on, it stopped. That was pretty creepy. That was when I first moved to Calgary. I was boarding at somebody's house, and I understand and I'm more comfortable with the paranormal now. But at that time, it kind of freaked me out. But I would like to have more paranormal experiences. I stayed in a haunted house for a weekend back in January. I did a report on it. You can search it up. Hannibal Reviews Tucker House. I didn't experience any paranormal activity, and I tried really hard to get some, but that place I found just was not haunted. Uriah Online says, I love your shoots, Hannibal. Keep those babies coming. Rio Cali, what's Rougeau's son up to? Does he still wrestle? No. He's a car salesman now. It's just unfortunate because they could have easily, if I was a booker, I would think right away, his name is Cedric. Jean-Jacques is another one of Jacques' sons. That would have been great, but Cedric really has, or at least the last time I saw him, it's been a couple of years now, and I don't know if he trains anymore because he got depressed when he didn't get that contract. But Cedric had it all, and if they had brought him in with Jacques as the manager, he would have been instantly over. Originally, the whole thing we were talking about was to have the new Quebecers, me and Cedric, with Jacques managing us, where I could actually do most of the work for the team, where he would have been like the arrogant, good-looking guy. We would have had the Rougeau name. It would have been huge. But and I was legitimately trained by Jacques and knew Cedric since he was like very young and was legitimately friends with him. It would have been good. But they hired two other people from Quebec, at least one other that are the shits and are basically small. I actually watched a shoot interview with Raven from 2005 recently, and he was saying even back then, and it's worse now, that there's too many small wrestlers. It's okay to have him for 1 or 2 matches on the card, but now like 8, probably 7 or 8 of the matches on a 10-match card would be small guys doing flips, which again, it's cool in 1 or 2 matches, but when more than half the card is gymnastics and flips, it's just not interesting. Ed from Queens tipped me $10. In that bloody match with Abdullah, was he jamming the fork in my forehead? Also, was Abdullah ever strong? How much could he bench? He does use bottles and glass and stuff that actually cuts, but believe it or not, the fork really doesn't hurt much. He does work the fork. I don't think he was worked out. I know he claims that he's like some 9th degree karate black belt. Okay, but let's look at it this way. He admits that he grew up poor. He started wrestling when he was like 17, and in those days you wrestled 7 nights a week. Where the hell would he have had time to get a 9th degree black belt? And what move, other than his stupid thrust, have you ever seen Abdullah that slightly even resembles a martial arts move? So Ed from Queens, he's a big fat guy. When I wrestled him, he was over 500 pounds, I believe. So no, he's not strong. And last time someone asked me this, they said, well, maybe he has a glands issue. what he always wanted to eat was hot dogs and ice cream. And I'm not exaggerating this. And if you stop at a gas station, pick me up some candy. This guy is not fat because he has a gland issue. And at one point, he went from a cane to a walker to a wheelchair because he just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. At some point, when you can't walk because you're getting so fat, a light bulb should go off and say, maybe I better start losing some weight. Oh, he also really liked whole milk and smoked meat, the fatty kind. You can get lean smoked meat and fatty smoked meat. He liked the smoked meat that was fat. Gooner Man says he had an out-of-body experience when he was 10. You can message me at greatnorthwrestling@gmail.com. I've been doing lots of research lately into past lives and evidence, like clear evidence, and I'm not going to get into this now, but that multiple lives have happened for some people, and I won't get into the proof of it, but your body, I truly believe, is just your vessel. The soul is something else, and I haven't come to a conclusion yet. I am researching constantly, though. Constantly. And Tom Davies, did Axe have an out-of-body experience? Yes. He talks about it on this channel. Search Demolition Axe on his out-of-body experience. That whole thing led to Crush being introduced into Demolition. Bon Lewis, how come Ray Rougeau never trained anyone? Because Ray stayed with WWE for a long time. Jacques was in and out. Ray saved his money better than Jacques. Jacques put on a lot of events. Some were successful, some weren't. The promoting business is very risky and it's not very lucrative. Jacques did great overall as far as getting many shows with over 3,000 fans, some with as many as 9,000 to 11,000. But Jacques wasn't as wise with his money as Raymond was. So I think that's the issue. I don't know if Raymond's ever been divorced either, but I know at one point Jacques was divorced, and divorce always kills people. So there's a lot more questions, but I won't go into too many more because I've been going half an hour here. So thanks a lot. Chris Lee says, I wouldn't mind sticking around as a ghost and messing with people. It really depends. I don't know how fun that would be, to be honest, to be stuck for eternity as a ghost. There is evidence of ghosts. I'm not saying all ghosts are 100% proof, but someone asked me about this earlier. This was not faked, and I witnessed this, a rocking chair moving on its own that would stop moving when I turned the light on. There was in a basement living room area. There was no wind. There was no windows open. So there are things that just aren't explainable yet, but there's a lot of weird stuff going on in this world right now too. Everyone keeps hoping things will get better. I hope things get better, but it just seems like this is a test of how easily our freedom can be taken away, and it's kind of depressing. But the only thing that's actually keeping me cheerful is that I can now at least train in Quebec. Well, I'll have to answer one more question here because Ed from Queens tipped me $10 more, and I'll always answer people that tip me. Not to bother you, I followed Abdullah for 40 years. Did he work out when he was younger? I don't know. I knew Abdullah the Butcher. I think I met him in Puerto Rico for the first time, but I didn't wrestle him there. But by the time I knew him, he certainly wasn't working out anymore. I only knew him for a couple of years, and he definitely wasn't working out. Did he work out when he was younger? It's possible, but he didn't really have to work out for his gimmick. I would hypothesize that the only workouts Abdullah the Butcher got was his actual matches. That would be my guess. So I hope that answers your question. Thanks for the tips, everyone that tipped me. Really appreciate it. Put it towards better shoot interviews and increased shoot interview content. So have a good night or morning, everyone.